Welcome back, everybody, to the Seattle Emeralds My NBA series here in NBA 2K25. Your Emeralds are 17 and 50, but fan interest is skyrocketing in year one. We have a lot of support here in Seattle. We have time to rebuild this roster. Last time out, we ended up at the trade deadline, made a few small moves, nothing crazy. We moved on from Brook Lopez to get a young option, and we took on the contract of Mike Conley as well. We sent Lopez over to a contender to hopefully give him a chance to win something. His maybe last year in the NBA rather than just kind of rotting on our bench. As you can see, it's been a rough year. We kind of expected that, and we went past the All-Star weekend. We saw our rookie Ace Bailey played in the Rising Stars game. They were actually lost by 22 to the sophomores, but Ace Bailey had a pretty solid 10-point performance in about 20 minutes or so on the floor. The sophomores were led by Reed Shepard and Zach Edey, both with 20 points respectively. The Western All-Stars took down, or actually I shouldn't say, the Eastern All-Stars took down the Western All-Stars 127 to 121. Maxey led the way with 19 for the Eastern Conference. LaMelo Ball only got in for 5 minutes. Anthony Davis on the other side led the way for the Western Conference with 24 points as a representative of the Los Angeles Lakers. As far as standings go, nobody has clinched anything just yet. I mean, I know it's still pretty early. We're sitting at the dead last in the Western Conference. The Nuggets have clinched the play-in tournament at minimum. They are the 1 seed right now. They kind of overtook the Oklahoma City Thunder, as we saw the Thunder kind of holding that number 1 seed for some time. But the Nuggets have been on a roll. They've won 6 in a row. They have been very, very good in recent times. Since about 4 weeks into the season, they are now at 50 and 16. They've overtaken the Thunder. They are now the favorites far and away in the Western Conference, and even in the NBA, because the Eastern Conference is much weaker than the Western Conference is this year. And I mean, that's how it always is, if we're being honest. But we're going to take on an exciting young Spurs team. Now, the Spurs are currently sitting at 40 and 26. They are one of the top 10 teams according to power rankings in the NBA at this moment. They have Wemby, obviously. They have Devin Vassell. They've got Stephon Castle. But this team was able to go out there and bring in Cooper Flagg with the #1 overall pick last season, and he has been dominant alongside Wemby. He has been so just athletic and such a monstrous lob threat that it is hard to understand how this team is not the #1 seed. But besides saying that they are young and they are not expected to be the #1 seed just yet, but hey, anything can happen. Why can't we go out here and upset the Spurs and play a little bit of the spoiler, if we want to call it that, because this team is looking to get seeding. They're looking to win every game they can. We have nothing left to play for, so let's go out there and play and give it our all, as the Emeralds are going to start off on defense. Devin Vassell is going to go to Chris Paul, who's still kind of that mentor for this Spurs team. Wemby lets a 3 fly, and he can't hit it, so a rebound goes to J-Dub, or Jalen Williams, and he goes out to Ace Bailey. Ace Bailey ahead of the pack and is fouled on the layup attempt. Jeremy Sohan is going to foul him. Bailey has continued to struggle from the free throw line. You would expect a shooter of his volume to be a reliable free throw shooter, but unfortunately he just has not quite been able to get there. As we get our first look at Cooper Flagg, he's matched up with Kispert. Nice little step through move, and he dunks it with one hand right around the defense of Corey Kispert, if you can call it that. I mean, it wasn't very good defense, but nevertheless, Ace Bailey lets it fly on the way back, and he hits the 3 right in the face of Chris Paul, as that layup is missed by Jay Will. Devin Vassell ahead of the pack. He's kind of fallen backwards as Cooper Flagg throws the lob down. The Lob City Spurs now, as Wemby snatches that one out of the air. You cannot do a lazy pass around Victor Wembanyama. Now Cooper Flagg again throws it down, this time on top of Ace Bailey, as this really is beginning to look like Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan with Chris Paul out there on the floor for the Spurs. Corey Kispert, a nice little answer for a 3. Cooper Flagg corrals in the dangerous pass from Chris Paul. Paul's got it with about 3 seconds to go. Gives it to Flagg. Jay will contest. Cooper Flagg is too good. He has 11 in the first quarter for the Spurs as we look to get back into this one 15-9. Surprisingly, we are not completely out of this yet. Going out to Collier, around to Kispert. Kispert lets it fly, kissing his fingers, checking the wind, and that one is good. 16-12, Corey Kispert with his second 3 of the game. Ace Bailey, tough mid-range jumper falls. Stephon Castle, the guy that I'm really high on, did a good job to contest that one, but just not able to stop Ace Bailey getting into his spot as Jay Will hits the long 3. This one is still a 4-point game, 25-21 here into the second quarter now. Keldon Johnson in the game. Castle is guarding over there. This time Fontecchio lets it fly. He's not going to be able to let that one go as Zach Collins with the contest. And Zach Collins outruns everybody. Lazy defense and lazy transition there for the Emeralds defensive unit as Mike Conley's long 3 is no good. The veteran came over from Minnesota in a trade as he was replaced by Bub Carrington. Not Bub Carrington, as he was replaced by some other point guard options there in Minnesota, and Conley is guarding Castle. Monk comes to help, but Castle is able to convert over both of the Emerald defenders, but Malik Monk throws it down back the other way. This game may not be all that close, may not be all that exciting when it comes down to it, but that was a nice dunk by a potential 6-man of the year candidate if he was on a good team. Yet again, Stephon Castle now on the left side. He's going to get the screen from Flagg. Castle's running. He's going to lob it down. Cooper Flagg throws it down again, double-handed. That matchup, Cooper Flagg versus Johnny Furphy, is not fair. Furphy gets a chance to pass it around to Fontecchio. Fontecchio replacing Georges Niang in his minutes after we traded Niang at the deadline. Good 3 from the corner there, 41-30. This one is still manageable. An 11-point ball game. Flagg's going to drive, kicks it out to Sohan. About 6 seconds to go on the shot clock. Sohan looking for the 3. Not the greatest shooter, but he still sticks that one. As the Spurs offensive unit just does not seem to miss. A good set there between Fontecchio, no, that was Batadze, and Corey Kispert. He's able to get Kispert free off the screen, and Kispert lets that one go and drills it as we see Chris Paul working on Malik Monk. Paul's going to kick it out to Sohan. About 6 seconds to go. This looks familiar. This time a screen from Wemby. Sohan leaning jumper. 3 is good. Jeremy Sohan, not a great three-point shooter by any means, but 2 back-to-back tough three-point shots at the end of the clock. Now Devin Vassell steals it out of the air. Vassell ahead of the pack, and he dunks it down as he will give the Spurs a 20-point lead going into halftime. We see Badadze pushing down Chris Paul. It's going to be a swing to Isaiah Collier. Contest is on time, but he still hits the 3. That is his first bucket of the day. Jeremy Sohan, he has been vital for this offensive unit these last few possessions into the second quarters. Now Cooper Flagg throws it down again off the lob from Chris Paul. You really can't do anything about that as Ace Bailey lets it fly and hits the tough 3. Cooper Flagg, I mean, he just gets anywhere near the rim and they lob it up. He's going to catch it. Ace Bailey misses the steal. It's still a 21-point ball game. Flagg being guarded by Bailey. Fadeaway mid-range jumper is good. And Cooper Flagg with 26 now on the evening. Now Bailey hop steps inside. He's going to go out to Kispert. Kispert lets it fly, and he hits it. So that is another three-point shot for Corey Kispert. He's been pretty solid for us today. Unfortunately, the team hasn't been all that solid as Jeremy Sohan drives. Kicks it back out. He passed up an open look. They're going to get it back to Stephon Castle. Almost stolen by Isaiah Collier. Instead, it leads to another lob. And that time, not Cooper Flagg, but it is Stephon Castle throwing it down as the Spurs continue to just rally this one. 78-53 now. Adem Bona in the game trying to stop Wemby. Wemby hasn't even been the biggest of our worries. That's the bad part. They haven't really been playing through Wembenyama today as Kispert hits his 5th 3 of the day as he is shooting at a very solid clip in this one. And he's been one of the few reliable options on offense. They're going to go now. Pele Larson, late in the third, hits a 3. That makes it 80-59, cutting it down now to 21 points. Malik Monk's going to kick it down to Bona as we start this fourth quarter down 86-54. 61. Dembona getting some playing time as he is now the backup center. I guess technically the third string center after we traded away Brook Lopez. Cooper Flagg dumps it to Keldon Johnson. Johnson lobs it, and that one is thrown down again by Flagg. I mean, his knees have to be destroyed at this point, the amount of jumping and harsh landing he's doing. Fontecchio swings it. Furphy lets it fly, and he hits the three. 90-69. Corey Kispert in the corner. Can't get it to fall. Good rebound by Badatse as we get a chance to reset. Ace Bailey with Johnson on him. Jab step. Lets it fly. Ace Bailey licking his chops when he sees the defense standing down against him as that one falls. 98-76. Despite a good offensive quarter for the Emeralds, this one isn't even close. Simon Fontecchio hits the three. He has 9 on the evening as it is now 79-100. The Spurs lead continues to stand at 21. Badadze guarding Wemby. He lets that one know that it is not welcome here. Isaiah Collier chases it down, swings it to Bailey, who throws it down with the one-handed jam. Goga Badadze, I mean, you've got to have moral victories. And blocking Victor Wembanyama on a layup is one of those. So we see Jeremy Sohan driving. Sohan kicks it. Paul's going to let it fly. You're fine with that, honestly, at this point in his career. I was kind of just hoping we would stop the swing pass to Devin Vassell, which we did. Unfortunately for us, Chris Paul still hit the three, and that's kind of the theme throughout this entire game. The Spurs were just far better than this Emeralds team. I mean, the Spurs are immensely talented. They went out there. They got Cooper Flagg. They've held their core. And now they won that one by a pretty large margin. As we look at the team statistics as we're wrapping up year one here with only a 1 game left. Malik Monk, pretty solid for us. Ace Bailey was really good for us as the rookie leader for this team. I mean, honestly, you expect a guy like him to come in, struggle a little bit, not shoot it as well, but man, he was just amazing for us. Steals, Bailey was the second guy there as well. And 3-point percentage, obviously, Corey Kispert was the number 1 guy. We're at the end of year one, I did say. So, MVP race, this is what it's looking like right now. Unfortunately, Jokic going into the playoffs may be injured with back spasms for 1 to 2 weeks. Giannis, Wemby, Joel Embiid, and Zion Williamson are there as well. Rookie of the Year, Dylan Harper leads the way with 14.4 points per game, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Flagg with similar statistics. Ace Bailey with better points, slightly better rebounds, but a lot less assists than the rest of them. Igor Demon has been pretty good, and VJ Edgecombe has been very solid for the Austin Bullets. 6th man of the year is going to Malik Monk, thankfully. Hopefully they stand by that. Lonzo Ball is there. Bobby Portis is there, so a couple of bucks in that list. DPOY probably going to go to Wemby, and most improved player is basically only going to be the expansion team players for this moment in time because, they're all getting much higher opportunities here as a part of an expansion team. But before we end the season, next episode we will be taking on the Thunder in our season finale. We've got to get into a few more prospects that I never got around to talking about. We've got some very, very solid power forward and center options, in my opinion, that shouldn't be overlooked, if we're being honest. There's some really good power forward and center big man options and stretch 4 and stretch 5 options as well. We're going to start out with probably the best power forward on the board. He's smaller. He's 6'8". He's 218. 21 years old, so a little bit older. But, I mean, he's getting comparisons to Dirk Nowitzki, Blake Griffin, slightly less athletic Blake Griffin. But this is Glenn Griffin, not related to Blake Griffin. He is a very solid scorer in the paint. Comfortable shooting from 3, comfortable shooting from mid-range. As I mentioned, a solid defensive player inside. He's not the greatest or quickest perimeter defender. Unfortunately, like I said, he doesn't have Blake Griffin's athleticism, but I still think he has good enough athleticism to function as a solid stretch 4 who can, go down there, get you some rebounds, go out, hit some big shots for you. At 21, he's a little bit more, experienced than other guys coming out of college that you would hope to have, or you would expect out of a young guy. So he brings some good spark there when it comes to IQ. on the floor on offense and on defense. He is slightly less consistent than you would hope for him to be. He's not going to be a guy that goes out there every night and gives you 25 a night, but maybe he can go out there and develop to give you 15 a night, night in and night out. If I had to compare him to somebody, he gives me Tobias Harris, or if we're talking about role player, maybe like a Larry Nance Jr. with less athleticism. That would be a good option to compare him to, in my opinion. Next up, we've got undoubtedly the best shooter at the power forward position. That is Jake Cole, 6'10", power forward out of Duke. He is 21 years old. He's got all NBA comparisons. I like to compare Jake Cole to a much, now hear me out now, to a much better all-around Davis Bertans. This guy can light it up on offense. I mean, as you can see, solid mid-range shooter. Knack for blocking shots, so he's an okay defender in the paint, but don't ask him to go out there on the perimeter and play consistent defense. And honestly, don't ask him to match up against a guy like Giannis consistently, because he's not going to be able to do it. But his offensive game so far through college has outweighed his defensive negatives. He does have struggles when it comes to IQ and court awareness, as I mentioned, especially on defense. And he's not the strongest or most athletic guy coming out of the draft. But if your team looking mid-lottery, 11, 12, or 14 at a guy that can go out there and just absolutely light it up from three at the power forward position, I think, there's nobody better in this draft than Jake Cole, if that's the type of guy your team is looking for. Next up, we've got a slightly reverse guy, like I say, an opposite player compared to Jake Cole. We've got Gerard Pickett, 21-year-old, 6'8" power forward, another undersized guy out of BYU. Getting Dolph Shays comparisons for some reason. That's a little weird. A lot of contemporary outlets are comparing him to like a slightly better offensive Montrezl Harrell type center, or power forward center, I should say. He's a little shorter for the position. Some Taj Gibson-esque comparisons. Gerard Pickett, really good scorer inside. He's got a refined post game, which you don't see a lot with big men nowadays. Great rebounder, great rim protector. I mean, he's not going to go out there like this says. Very capable, but not spectacular. He's good at it. Don't expect him to go out there and be your anchor. But if you've got a solid defender beside him, he can be really, really formidable in the post, especially using his strength. Unfortunately, doesn't have shooting range. He can hit mid-range a little bit, but don't expect it to be consistent, and definitely don't expect him to go out there at the three-point line, or expect him to be, creating his own shot or dribbling the ball a whole lot. He is not a guy that does that. He, really does not run through, the offense does not run through Gerard Pickett, I should say. Next up, we've got projected 24, 25, and 26, Sean Wesley, 6'10", power forward out of Duke, playing alongside Jake Cole. So these two guys are teammates. Wesley is getting Sean Kemp comparisons, all-star comparisons, I should say. Unfortunately, he does not have the shooting touch that late career Sean Kemp could have had, or what you could say had, to some degree, but he does have the athleticism. I like to compare Sean Wesley to a Clint Capella or DeAndre Jordan type guy, but except for he's at the power forward position. He's very, very athletic. You're going to know he's in the paint. I mean, this guy thrives inside scoring, rebounding, athleticism. Those are his best traits. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's got a hyper, very, very good motor. He's going around. He's guarding other positions. He's getting rebounds. He's going up the court, passing it. Just a physical guy. Unfortunately, with that, similar to Gerard Pickett in some ways, offensive game struggles, not really refined shooting-wise. He can score inside to a degree, but he's not like Pickett. He doesn't have a refined post game. He can't really create for himself. He can't handle the ball for himself. And he does struggle when going out on, I would say, like extremely quick guards. He needs to, work on his athleticism and agility as well. Next up, we have another stretch four option, which I actually haven't even scouted completely. He's from a small university out of San Francisco, 20-year-old, 6'11", 215 pounds, Hugh Hawkins. This guy kind of slides over to small forward despite his height very seamlessly. You wouldn't expect that out of a guy of his size, but he is a very solid option if you're looking at a late round, second round, maybe late first round stretch four option. I mean, he's 6'11". He's got an ideal size and build. He's going to be able to set you screens. He's going to be able to pop out and hit threes at an effective rate, at least going off of his college numbers as of right now. His mid-range shooting is good as well. He does protect the rim a little bit. Don't expect him to be your anchor, or don't expect him to go out there and, get a ton of blocks, but he's going to contest at the very minimum. So that's a good thing with him. Unfortunately, with his frame, he's 215. He's a little taller and skinnier than some of these other guys. He is not the strongest or most physical guy. He lacks the bulk to consistently match up with those more physical big men like a Giannis, like an Embiid, like a Jokic. That frame makes him easy to push around. Additionally, defensive mobility. He's not the most agile or athletic guy, so that means, don't expect him to be running around on the perimeter guarding a bunch of the guys, doing a bunch of switching. He's not that type of power forward, and he's really struggled with consistency. Obviously, maybe he should have stayed for a few more years, you could argue. He's only 20. He's getting projected maybe late second round, and one projection giving him going in the first round, but he's declared, so he's stuck in the draft. So no matter where he falls to, it'll be interesting to see what his NBA career ends up being, because you could definitely argue that he needed to, kind of let himself cook a little bit more in college, or a little bit longer in college. As we wrap up, close now to the final two or three guys on our power forward report. We have Daryl Woodson, a 6'8", pure paint protector who played for the Iowa Hawkeyes. He is 21 years old. Comparisons are Aaron Gordon. And this guy, if he could shoot a little bit better, he would be your ideal power forward candidate. He is an all NBA shot blocker. I mean, he is just so good at blocking and rebounding. Just post defense in general. Mid-range shooting is there to a degree. Definitely needs to work on consistency. You would love also if he could go out there and get a three-point shot, because, mid-range is great and all, but three-point shot is where it's at nowadays. And, his offensive side of the game is very, very limited. I've got to give him, credit for making it this far as a guy who's very limited on offense. But if you're looking for a lockdown power forward that, hey, maybe he's 21, he can maybe develop into an offensive, positive, then Daryl Woodson is your, guy you're going to have to go with, because he's not great, but he's not bad on offense. He's not absolutely so bad that you can't play him, like some guys are. That we'll see a little bit further on their list. Another guy that is not that good on offense is the next guy on our list, Clay Cook, playing for Damian Lillard's Weber State. 6'10", 23 years old, so one of the older guys in this draft, one of the older guys at the power forward position. But he has, solid comparisons. Guys are giving him Draymond Green All-NBA comparisons, or Jonathan Isaac. He's a very good defender. He protects the paint. He guards on the perimeter. Even at his size, he's pretty agile and able to get around, screens, get under screens, get over them. He does a really good job at that, and he's able to score on the inside now, similar to what we saw with Daryl Woodson. Clay Cook, just not there on offense. He can't shoot from three. He doesn't have range at all. His game on offense is very limited, but hopefully whoever takes him will be able to develop him a little bit on the offensive side of the ball, and give him a true chance to, actually show something in the NBA, as we now get a chance to look at our final power forward that we've actually wrote up a report on, and that is Gui Kennedy, 21-year-old power forward center, 6'8", out of Indiana. As you're noticing, there's a lot of smaller power forwards in this draft. This guy is getting comparisons to Tom Gugliotta or George Johnson, so not the greatest comparisons, but Gui is a stretch four option. This guy is very comfortable from three. We'll see how he transfers to a three-pointer in the NBA. but he's got solid frame, should be able to, put on that muscle and get bigger, and not be able to get thrown around. Athleticism is solid. Inside scoring is solid for Gui, and mid-range shooting is solid. If he really works on getting defensively consistent, I mean, he's got a 6'10 wingspan at 6'8, so he's pretty good there. I think this guy could be the steal of the draft. I mean, his stretch ability is there. If he can become a consistent factor on defense, I don't really see any reason why Gui Kennedy won't be one of the top, second round picks or late first round steals in this draft that we've seen in some time, as we now look to get into the center position. We're going to start out with pretty much the unanimous top center. Well, I mean, it's a bit of a battle between him and Matt Gravett. But first of all, we've got Rondé Wood, the 7-footer out of Jackson State, 260 pounds, 20 years old. He's got Wayne Embry comparisons or DeAndre Ayton. So solid or really good. I mean, you'd much rather him be closer to Wayne Embry than he is to DeAndre Ayton. Rondé Wood got some good strengths. I mean, he's a rebounder. Post defense is there. Inside scoring is there. That presence of a 7-footer at 264 pounds, I mean, that is just enough to make you scared to even go in the paint. Definitely is closer to like an Alex Sarr than a Wemby. He's not some generational alien that's going to go out there behind the back crossover, 3-point step back shots, but he's solid on the offensive side of the ball. Definitely not a shooter. He's pretty limited to inside the arc and doesn't really possess a reliable mid-range or 3-point shot, which, maybe brings up questions about his floor or his ceiling, I should say. Lateral quickness does need a little bit of work, but that can be trained and also, be worked on, as well as free throw shooting and playmaking. Rondé Wood, just your traditional 7-foot center who I think, you would not be surprised if he falls out of the top 7, just because of how similar he is to a guy like, Zach Edey, who fell out of the, fell farther in the lottery because he didn't bring as much offensive game. Next up, we've got Matt Gravett, a 6'11 center out of Michigan State. And this guy, I mean, also has Alonzo Mourning comparison. So you've got to imagine this guy's, a solid prospect at the very least. Gravett is a very strong inside the arc threat. He's good scoring inside. He's good at rebounding. He's pretty athletic for a 6'11 big man at 246 pounds. His speed and his agility is pretty eye-opening watching somebody move that quick at that size. Physicality is something that he really prides himself in, just playing physical on the block, getting rebounds, intimidating guys, and trying to keep them outside the paint. Unfortunately, as with Rondé Wood, offensive game is limited. He does have a slight mid-range jumper that you could say as a positive benefit to maybe take him over Rondé Wood, because it looks like maybe he'll be a little bit better in the long run on offense, but needs to work on his ball handling, not to be a primary ball handler, but just to get better at it, and also his free throw shooting as well. Next up, we see Stephen Longley, who actually is probably, I would have to say, my favorite option in this, center class, because he's 19 years old. He is raw on offense. He doesn't have a lot of range outside of getting to the basket, getting to the paint, getting around the rim, but the really exciting part about Stephen Longley, he's 6'9", so he'd probably have to slide over to power forward at some point in his career, is his ability to get to the basket. I mean, this guy is a slasher at the center who is going to hit you with the screen, knock you out probably, and turn around and sprint full speed and maybe even still take down a lob from the point guard. I mean, he is just outstanding when it comes to getting to the basket and catching lobs. There is probably nobody better than him in this draft as far as lob consistency goes. But like the other guys, needs to work on offense, needs to work on free throw shooting, and in defensive consistency leaves a little bit to be desired. 7'3" Bruce Hood. Now, there's not a lot of shooting at the center position in this draft, is something you're starting to see. Bruce Hood is 21 years old, very tall, very big build. I mean, pretty skinny, all things considered, for being 7'3". He's got JaVale McGee comparisons. I don't know how true that's going to be, but, one important thing about Bruce Hood, This guy can play make. He's one of the best playmakers in the draft at the center position, I should say, but all around, just one of the better playmakers in the draft. Rebounding wise, he is a force on the glass. That 7'3" frame is really, really big when it comes to rebounding, as well as post defense, protecting the rim. And, you get it to him around the basket, he's probably going to be able to score. Unfortunately, though, as with all the other centers we've seen up to this point, offensive game is non-existent almost. I mean, he can't shoot at all. Really, really needs to work on extending his range, getting, a mid-range shot, and then maybe at some point a three-point shot as well. That would be a big, big help, in my opinion, when it comes to developing his offensive side of the ball. Next up, we've got Dak Trammell, the 6'11" center out of Miami, Florida. He is 21 years old. Trammell is getting pretty solid comparisons, I would say, of Kristaps or John Collins hybrid-esque players. He's really our first center we've seen that's able to shoot the ball at all. He's got really solid rebounding abilities. Post defense is there. Three-point shooting is there. Athleticism is there. But he is very small. 218 pounds at 6'11". That's very skinny. He's going to get thrown around. Shot creation on his own is not there. He really needs a good guard beside him to play make the ball. I think that's why he's getting projected to fall so low. I mean, he's a good, solid center to stretch the floor, but he hasn't really proved that he's able to, go out there and score on his own. I would say that's probably one of the biggest what-ifs about Dak Trammell. Next up, we are about to wrap up. I believe we are at our 6-man, so we have 2 more or so. Herman Randall is the next center. He is 7'3", 20 years old, Washington State local. Randall is a very imposing frame. I mean, he's very good in the paint, very good at blocking, very solid from the mid-range. So he's not all the way one-dimensional. Unfortunately, rebounding is good also. Size-wise, very, very big. But lateral movement is not very quick. He's very slow, very bulky and tanky. He can't really handle the ball. He's not going to, be able to go out there and guard anybody smaller than him, really, because if they're fast, they're going to be able to outrun him. And his free throw shooting does need a lot of work. So he does have some holes in his game. I see him as a bit of a DeAndre Jordan-esque guy that potentially can develop one day, a few years into his NBA career. Next up, we have Julio Owens, however you would say it. He is from a very small school, Mount San Jacinto College, getting comparisons to DeAndre Ayton. Owens is one of the better rebounders in the class. He's got a good, solid, IQ when it comes to protecting the rim. He's pretty agile as far as big man things go, and unfortunately, as with many other centers, needs to work on offense, needs to work on ball handling, and needs to work on free throw shooting. But he does have a solid touch around the rim. I will give him that. So that would be, a reason that he is able to go a little bit higher than he's expected to. As we now get to, in my opinion, definitely the best shooter at the center position in this draft, Jamison Monroe. His archetype is literally just stretch 5. He's a 7-foot center out of Tennessee, 22 years old. Getting comparisons to Big Z, the guy that used to play with LeBron that everybody loved, or Rafe LaFrentz. Two very solid, comparisons for a center. He's a solid shooter. He's somewhat reliable on ball with defense. Good at rebounding. It's kind of insulting to say he shows a lot of heart at rebounding rather than say he's really good at rebounding. But, he does a good job on the boards and I think has a lot of room to mature even at 22 years old. Not the greatest playmaker or ball handler as expected or the most agile guy, which isn't really expected out of a 7-footer anyways. It would be nice, don't get me wrong, but Jamison Monroe brings a very much needed 3-point stretch big to this center class, which is otherwise, very heavily skewed towards defensive, non-offensive minded archetypes. And, that's rare nowadays. I think that's definitely going to be interesting to see how that goes. But next episode, we'll end the season. We'll take on the Thunder, and then we'll go through the playoffs, see what all happens there. Unfortunately, we won't be in it, so it'll be pretty quick to go through that. Hope you all did enjoy this one. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe, go ahead and turn on post notifications so you never miss an upload. I'll see you all next time.